Hey lads, camera issues will be the bane of my existence. I packed my camera, tripod, everything into the Lambo and brought it 5 hours here because I was going to film some content while I was there staying at this resort. And lo and behold, I'm having issues with the camera. So we're on Old Faithful again. The iPhone never fails, so we stick to that. It's not a bad thing. But what I was going to film today is, and I guess that I will on the iPhone instead, I'm going to teach you guys, about freedom. The freedom that can come from investing, the freedom that can come from smart investing. You're not going to buy your time back working a wage job. You're not going to buy your time back trading time for money. Even if you make a good hourly rate, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually have that freedom though. You're still going to be tethered to your work for most of you, because most of you only understand to trade time for money. You don't understand to have your own gig, one, so that you can move staff and actually leverage staff so that you don't have to be there. That's what I do. I have a business in Australia. I have real estate in Australia. If anyone needs to contact me, they can contact me on the phone. But I can earn all that income and I can essentially have my time free. I decided to come to this resort for a few days. It's $1,000 a night. We're in a nice spot here, beautiful view. It's jacuzzis, bars and everything down there. But I've decided to come up and film some content. And this is the freedom that you can get by not having to go to work, by actually being able to earn money while I'm here. I still make my 500K a year plus passive. 500K a year is completely passive, where I don't even have to get out of bed in the morning to make it. Maybe I have to answer 1 or 2 calls a month to earn it. So that's what passive income means to me. It doesn't mean some of you guys think that you've got passive income, but then you still have on the clock. You still have to do things to get it. Passive for me is extremely passive. And I also have a crypto portfolio that's working away for me. In the next bull run, I would expect that will multiply. And that will be the thing that pushes me up to, 50 or 100 M next cycle. I'm already over 10 million. Once with me too, I'm not from money. I'm not one of these rich kids or one of these guys that, had a leg up or had daddy's money or any of that stuff. My dad drives buses for the council. My mum hasn't worked in a considerable amount of time. I'm in a position where I can look after everyone. I have my daughter back in Australia and I still provide for her as well. So that's the thing that can come along with smart investments. But you have to understand the separate buckets of investments as well. I have my passive income coming in, yes, but I also have my crypto, which is based on multiplying wealth. Crypto for me is multiplying wealth. A lot of the other passive stuff like real estate or, bonds or money in the money markets, you've got your money in your savings and you're earning your 5% currently yearly. That matters when you have a lot of money. That doesn't really matter when you're earning 5% on 20K, especially with inflation. Even if you believe the numbers today where they're 8 to 12% in the US, a place like Poland where I am, inflation is probably closer to 20% still. It might have been more after the bug, after the virus, it might have even been considerably more. So, and then if you're in countries like, parts of South America or Turkey or places like that, it's not uncommon that inflation can be pretty much like, doubling every year. That those currencies are heading to zero over the long term. They're just destroyed. Because what happens is, a lot of people don't understand, a lot of the countries owe debt in dollars. So they have to print more of their currency to pay off the dollar, to pay the same amount of dollars back, because their currency is actually continually getting weaker against the dollar. They don't pay their US denominated debt back in lira. They only accept dollars. So the US dollar itself has utility, considerable utility. I know with BRICS and things like that, some of the other currencies can gain momentum, but a lot of the US controls the infrastructure. They control the SWIFT system, they control most of the stuff that matters. I know a lot of these other rivals, like, China or Saudis, things like that, they can build their own system, but it will take a very long time. It'll take a considerable amount of time before it gets traction. And it will only get traction in their niche areas. It won't be a thing that's pushed through like the euro or things like that, or there will be fucking massive war. It's US is guys will say US dollar's backed by nothing, but it's backed by the most powerful military in the world. And it's backed by a military that doesn't really have any qualms with attacking other countries. If they feel like they're gonna damage their position in the world, and it's always damage it financially. Like that's the thing that matters now. It's a financial sort of war that we're in. So yeah, what the video today is about is I would hope that you guys understand that just because you're earning a wage, even if you're earning good money, you still have to invest. It's your investments that are going to multiply your wealth. It's your investing prowess that's going to decide if you retire well or in the poorhouse. Because a lot of guys relying on their superannuation and things like that, the traditional products, you can't really beat inflation easily. You have to multiply your wealth. You have to have income producing assets, yes, like real estate and things like that. But a lot of guys will be invested, through their super or something, and they're actually just invested in real estate trusts. The best part of real estate, it's not so much that it appreciates, that's a good thing too, and that you earn a dividend essentially on the rent. It's that you can live in it as well if you have to. If all the world goes to complete shit, and you have to be able to, you own an asset now that you can live in. You can't live in a gold bar. You can't live in a Bitcoin. You can't live in a share of equity. You can't live in Apple stock, but you can live in, a house that you own, and you can be left alone in that house. I know that theoretically if the war or something breaks out or the government seizes your house, that's possible depending on who you are, but still it's a good carrot. It's part of having that fuck you money that people talk about. It's part of being in a position that you can't be moved so easily. You can't be pushed around by the government as easy if you own a house. If you own the house that you live in and all this other stuff, they kind of make you abide by all of these leases and things like that. That the wage cucks or rentoids have to abide by it. It's just another set of, I guess, legislation that they have to abide by. If I'm in my house and I own it, I can keep all my stuff there. I can do essentially whatever I want it in there. Whereas if you're renting, you don't really have a lot of privacy. It's hard to even leave things in there because you could get robbed by anyone. It never really feels like your house. And it's a hard thing in the future. A lot of less people will own real estate. It's going to be a lot less common that guys who are in schools and things like that, their parents own real estate. It's going to be less and less common, especially amongst the middle class or the lower classes. You can already see that happening in real time, but it's just happening slower. The thing with own nothing, be happy, it's suddenly, slowly and then suddenly. That's how a lot of this stuff works. It's slowly integrate, but once it crosses the tipping point, it's just the way that it is. These lockdowns or things like that, people didn't really think that they would be able to push it as far as they have. The surveillance laws and things like that they're reinstating, they're pushing through. I told you that they were passing a lot of these trolling laws in Australia, and bills where you'll need an identity just to go online, and people said that I was a madman. They said that I was crazy, and now you see what's happening in the UK and places like that. They can pretty much censor you online if they want now, and eventually you'll need an identification sort of thing to go online, and then there'll be no add-ons. The very concept that you'll be seeing there as an add-on on Instagram, making fake accounts and talking shit. That's fine if you talk shit about the average person, but if you're talking shit about the government, you can run into big problems in the future. The thing that people don't understand with that sort of stuff too, it's okay to be an anon talking crap now. It's still somewhat safe, but a lot of you guys are just going to get your kids on a list. You don't understand that. You'll get away with it just by luck. Timing. Some of you will just be losers, yes, but it will matter more in the future. If your dad is written down that he was just a troublemaker, in general, he causes issues to the government in a lot of these first world countries, even if that is just trolling and saying a bunch of crap, then the kids will suffer. That's how social credit works. I don't think you guys see what happens in China with social credit, where they have certain users and things like that, and they tell other people that they can't spend time around them or they get social credit deducted. Like, it's not really that difficult to police. It's not difficult to isolate people. It's not difficult to make them essentially like pariahs, especially with the way that tech's going and things like that. They don't need, like, in the West, yes, they need reasons currently. But in places that are further along with the, corruption, things like that, like China, they don't need a reason. They don't need to fucking like write down that you're the scum of the earth. They just tell people to avoid you, and if they don't, they just lose their points. Their own points just get withdrawn. They get punished, like they get fines and things like that, just to be associated with you. They don't need to go into some 600-word essay for why you're bad. They just say that you are. They don't need a reason. And that stuff will eventually happen in the future, yes. But it's more a fucking drone. Of course, there's some fucking drone over there. Some drone nerd. Hopefully it's not one of the Ukrainian drones. It'd be a big surprise. But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You have to figure out investing. You have to figure out how to multiply your wealth. You have to figure out how to preserve your wealth. You have to figure out the different buckets of wealth. You have to figure out how to get to that first 100K net worth. Then you have to figure out how to get to that first million. Then you need to figure out how to get to that 10M. And once every step is different, every step is different. Every step is different based on how much you earn, yes. But for a lot of you, it's going to be initially investing in your high income skill first, till you're on, 50, 100K a year. And then it's going to be a massive thing where you start pushing to learn to invest. Because a lot of you don't know fucking anything about investing. If you know anything, it's just either you completely risk adverse, where your concept of investing is just buying like fucking shit like the index, crap like that. Like, that's just passive. Like, you don't know anything about investing if you're just buying the index. I mean, the index itself is struggling to outpace inflation, especially if you're buying stocks in Australia. Like, if you're buying the ASX and you're avoiding tech and things like that, you haven't had a very good run. And then if you're buying the S&P in the US, you haven't had a great run either, because if you compare those to inflation, they're not doing very well. You compare gold, compare silver to inflation, it's not really a good space. Like, it's not doing well. The very concept that gold is some inflation hedge, like the last 10 years, it's been shocking. The last 10 years for silver's been shocking. Like, if you get it wrong, and guys will say, oh, it's only 10 years, zoom out. If you get it wrong for 10 years, like that's multiples less net worth than you're going to have when you're older. It's about being in the fastest like vehicle to wealth. It's not about fucking being in some slow cart. If you can get there in like 5 or 10 years, wouldn't you want to take it in 5 or 10 years? And the thing is, if you get it wrong, let's say I decide to give more of my portfolio allocation to gold and silver, and I listened to Peter Schiff, I avoided crypto, I've avoided everything, and I've been in gold and silver, even for 15 years. Maybe I've made like a 2x. Maybe I've made a 3x, 2 or 3x. I don't know what gold was. Maybe it was 600 or 800 an ounce then. But maybe I've made like a 2.5 or a 3x in like 15 years. The thing is, unless I took a bunch of debt to buy the gold, and even then I would be fucked, because I would have had to fund it with interest. Like, I would have to pay the rates and things like that. That's destroyed my wealth. Like, that's destroyed my retirement. Like, you can't just get it wrong for 10 years, because that's like, it multiplies. Missed opportunities. A lot of you don't understand that the biggest opportunity that you'll ever get is crypto. The second biggest opportunity that you'll ever get is tech. The automation, AI, robotics in the future, but of course AI will be the most lucrative. And you don't understand that crypto itself can be an AI product. Like, a lot of you don't understand that. Like, you don't have the foresight that I have. So you don't understand when people look at NVIDIA now, they understand it as an AI product. And that's part of why it's got the massive valuation that it's got today. Eventually people will clue in that Bitcoin itself is an AI product. But by then, it will be a lot more pricey than it is today. It'll be back at its all-time highs plus. So a lot of you, it's fucking drone. So a lot of you, don't understand the foresight. Like, you don't have foresight in tech. I do. You don't have the foresight to see that Bitcoin itself is ending next year, like 50 or 60K. A lot of you think that it's going to like 5K or 10K because some fucking nerd wrote it, like some Twitter anon says a bunch of crap. and he makes nothing if it's wrong. It doesn't matter to him because he's just farming engagement. A lot of you guys will fucking take like portfolio allocation from a guy who has like a $5,000 portfolio. Like that's pretty fucking dumb and pointless. Or a guy who just sells information. I'm actually in the market. You know, I have a 10, probably 11 or $12 million portfolio today. You know, I'm able to do what the fuck I want. That drone, it's really fucking with me. But yeah, I'm able to do whatever I want every day. You know, I got my Lamborghini parked out the front here. It's $1,000 a night here. Plus, I couldn't even tell you how much it was because it's like $1,500 a night. Because I don't really care. Like that shit doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't look at prices for things because I know that my portfolio itself is going to get me through. I make a lot of money passive, but then I make 40K a month passive. Fucking drone. Make 40K a month passive, but I know that my portfolio that's in crypto, I still have a few M in crypto that's going to multiply over the next, you know, 2 years, 2 or 3 years. And I'm also waiting to deploy. You know, I have about probably 3M in cash today, and I'm waiting to deploy that. You know, I'm waiting to deploy it into several projects currently. Always, there's one on the smaller cap side, but the smaller cap for me, it's still like 100M market cap that I'll be deploying a good amount of capital into for the next cycle. There's a few projects that I think are going to go 5-10x next cycle. There's one specifically that I think can go maybe 20x, you know, and it's highly liquid. It's not 20x and then, you know, you can't sell more than a few K worth without affecting the price. Because that's what a lot of you guys don't understand. You know, you don't understand, like, you have to be able to exit your positions. A lot of you guys don't think like investors because you don't really know anyone that is an actual serious investor. You know, you don't think of who's going to buy a product after you. A lot of you don't understand like who's going to buy a business after you. You know, like if you're building a business, you don't think of the buyer. Like a lot of you buy real estate, things like that. You don't think of who's going to buy it after you. Like why they're going to buy it. For some of you, you just think that you just buy the cheapest shit that you can. And then the next person who's buying it after you will just want the cheapest shit that they can find. So it's not going to be the pristine buyer. You know, a lot of you don't understand like types of assets either, like buying the most pristine asset that you can. Bitcoin itself is the most pristine asset. It's the most pristine piece of collateral that exists. You know, guys like Sailor and things like that. He is extreme. You know, he's obviously fucking all in. He's a bit delusional. I would be surprised if he doesn't at least have a hedge in Ethereum or something. I mean, to be that pushed into Bitcoin is a little bit crazy to me. But too much of a maxi when even if there's a 5% chance or something that he's wrong and that Ethereum becomes the massive one, you know, it's a good risk to return. You know, that's just hedging. That's smart. But yeah, I can't say I don't respect his conviction. But yeah, the thing that he gets right is he can see into the future. I mean, he was an early investor in Apple. He was buying Apple at like $10 or $20 a share, you know, before a lot of the splits. So I think he was buying Apple like, you know, 20 years ago or close. MicroStrategy itself has crashed to like, I remember MicroStrategy during the .com dropped to like, you know, I think it fell like to a few dollars or something. He lost like 98% valuation on his company. And he's still now, it's been back to hundreds of dollars since. You know, it's probably done 100x or close since the lows, if you compare it back to the highs. You know, this is a person who's held a company through a 98, 99% drawdown. This isn't a guy who's, you know, obviously not aware, you know, not able to hold or not able to, he's got very strong resolve. You know, he's not just a moon boy. He's actually been in the trenches. So I think that, yeah, he'll be very right. I don't think that he'll be the richest man in the world or anything like that. But I do think that, you know, he'll probably 10x his bags from here. You know, and it'll put him, I don't think obviously anywhere near the richest man in the world, but it'll put him in a very good position. The thing for him though is just going to be getting liquidity. You know, once he wants to get out of that position. I mean, it's very responsible that he, you know, maybe he gets to 60K or close to the highs, he gets his initial investment out. And that will, I guess, be just a phase of damaging, you know, the trust in Bitcoin because you'll have to sell some. But I would assume by that point, others will be buyers. You know, other companies, things like that will come out and say that they're buyers. That will be, people think that, you know, Sailor and things like that are the first and they're the last that were buyers. They don't understand that a lot of companies will grandstand next cycle and say that they're fucking Bitcoin investors, like they'll hold Bitcoin. People don't understand that eventually the Fed itself will hold Bitcoin. People just don't understand jack shit, the stuff that matters. They don't have the foresight to see that the US is controlling a large part of the mining and the infrastructure for Bitcoin. So that's why it will be a massive success. People think that it's a competitor to the dollar and it can't even be used for fucking payments. Like, it's too slow. It's not made for that. How can something be a competitor for the dollar if all of the stable coins are in dollars and it's not a payment provider? It can't be used for payments because it's slow and it's expensive and it's clunky. It's not CBDCs or the dollar itself is better for payments. Like, it's just so much more convenient. It's not made to be buying a fucking coffee. Like, that's just not the utility for it. It's a store of value. It's much bigger than fucking buying crap. Otherwise, we would be running around using gold coins. Gold's pristine. It's not as pristine, of course, because you can't know how much is in the ground. You can't know how much they're pulling out. You can't check the rate of inflation on gold. You have to rely on all of the crap that is pretty much only like the gold and boomers and people that are funding it to do all the surveying are being funded by the miners. So, of course, a lot of it relies on you trusting them to give you good information. So they could be pulling the rate of inflation out at like 10%. You wouldn't know. Tell you it's 2, just so that they make more money. But in the long run, Bitcoin's better in every way because it's mathematically fixed inflation. It's divisible. It's easily fucking brought down to a Satoshi. Gold is divisible, yes, but it's not. It doesn't make a lot of sense to sit there and be cutting up gold bars or coins or whatever. It's just clunky. It's difficult to store. You got to carry it around. It's just, you can't send it overseas really easy. I mean, you're relying on a third party if you send it anywhere. If you buy it and you get it delivered, you're relying on a third party that could tamper with it or steal it or do all sorts of shit to your gold. A lot of that crap. Like, you could buy a gold bar today and someone just sells you a fake one. But no one's selling you a fake Bitcoin. They could put tungsten in the gold and fuck you over completely, which happens at the vaults sometimes. Sometimes like insiders and things like that work in the vaults will tamper with the gold so that the vault thinks that it's holding like, a ton of gold, and then a few hundred kilos of it is just tungsten because the insiders have fucked everyone. So, of course, it's better in all of those ways that I've said. Mathematically fixed inflation, it halves every 4 years. It's a digital product. It can be an AI product. It can be many things in the future. It's still too early to say. It's not Bitcoin's final form. It's only like 12 years old or whatever, 13 years. I have a very big theory. I've said it before. I've never really heard anyone discuss it. That I think Bitcoin itself is like AI, and that the mining is being used to power like the seed itself of Bitcoin, like the chain, like the ledger and all that. I think that it's just a way for like computer tech to communicate with each other in a way that people can't really like decipher or understand, because energy is not destroyed. It can't really it's not created, but it's not destroyed. So people just sit there and think that Bitcoin itself is solving all of these pointless equations. They don't actually know what it's doing. They don't know that the incentive for Bitcoin is to build the most powerful power grid of computers and connect them all. I think that it'll be apparent in like 10 or 20 years what it is. I don't believe that Satoshi is CIA or any of this crap. I think that it's like it's been planted there. It's like the first piece of AI tech that exists. I think that it's the perfect incentive to get people to build it out, financial. It's the perfect incentive to get people to build the network and mine it and build the miners and just keep generating more and more power. At the state of power that is for Bitcoin, 10 years from now, it'll probably be the biggest user of power in the world. And yes, that can become clean energy to a point, but it's still energy. Like, it's still energy that could go to other things, and it's being used for that. I mean, nuclear is certainly an option in the future, but when you think about it, it doesn't make sense. Like, people will be like, it's CIA tech to control people. That doesn't really make sense. Why would they need that? Like, they already have a superior product in the dollar. Bitcoin itself, it's a store of value. It's not for payments. You know, it's not like the very concept that Satoshi, some guy like Robin Hood, built the tech. No one knows who he is. He never moved any coins. No one's died since then that's fucking like, you know, outed him or talked about it or moved the coins or got access to it in some way to move some of the coins and damage the trust in the network. You know, people don't work like that. Even like agents and things like that, they don't work like that. Like, they're just human. That's something, that sort of discipline or something like that is like machine. You know, that's like a technology that can do that. Because it doesn't think, like, it doesn't have emotions. It's not thinking like that. It's thinking for the long term. I think Bitcoin itself, yeah, it'll be identified that it's an AI product. It's building out a massive network. It's using a lot of the power to do fuck knows what. And that, I think that, yeah, 10 or 20 years from now, it will be apparent that that's what it was. It was the first piece of AI tech. Whether they know about it or not. And it's built a chain that can communicate with itself by a hash in ways that people can't fucking understand what it's doing. So I think that, yeah, it's probably a true thing that it just appeared online. The tech, you know, to mine it and do all these things just came online one day. But and the emails and things like that are probably true. But anyone who reads the emails, it reads as though it was written by a computer. You know, a lot of the stuff, the emails and that, they read as though, yeah, it was just written by a computer. You know, a lot of that stuff, it's just not human nature, you know, to be that selfless. But no one could come out in his whole life, you know, like, it's been enough time now. He would have known people that have died and things like that would come out and be like, I know who that is. You know, you can't keep that sort of a thing as an add-on for that long. It's too big. And people will be like, oh yeah, you know, the CIA know what it is and all of this crap and all of that shit. If that were true, I think that you would have already had fucking massive issues. They would have already moved the coins or done something. You know, I think that we'll find out that that's what it is. Some sort of, like, you know, AI tech. And that's why I've always had, or at least for like 5 years since I've thought that, had no doubt that Bitcoin itself will be wildly successful. Because I don't think that it's being driven by like people, not like us, or like anyone, even any sort of fucking nerd. I do think that they work on the tech, yes, but the tech itself was way ahead of its time. You know, it's not really something in those times that they could emulate. Like, they've had the crypto nerds, the guys who do, like, you know, like cryptographics and all that sort of crap, say that they couldn't build something that good, something that advanced. But then we're meant to believe that it was just a complete random that did it. If the best people in the world couldn't even do it, but some fucking random just did it. I don't believe that. I don't think that, you know, it's like a Robin Hood story. I think that it's just the perfect story, like it's the perfect narrative. It's the perfect Disney tale to essentially, yeah, get people to back it, become like the people's champ. And it's actually not. But we'll still get rich in the process. Bitcoin itself, I know that it's not done. I know that next cycle it's going to go higher than people think. But I think that, you know, there's going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be lots of slips and slides and turns and things like that I have discussed. But that, you know, only the disciplined will get to the top of the mountain. Those who, you know, too emotional, full of panic, moon boys buying all these meme tokens and crap, will just be holding garbage at the end. You know, I think that these ETFs change the game for Bitcoin. You know, they make it's very different. It's not the same as fucking the last runs. You know, the Bitcoin dominance will be higher than people expect. You know, people don't really, again, understand what's coming. They don't understand how ETFs work, that they can have a basket of large caps, things like that, which means that they have to buy the asset itself off the fucking exchanges. So it can be very good for the price, but it won't be good for the price of all of them. It will be like the ETF darlings, the ones that are going to get approved, that will do very well. And that means that projects and things like that will be fighting to be in the good books with the ETFs so that they can get listed and get that liquidity and get that FOMO and that interest. And a lot of the projects, people will speculate what's going to get ETF listed and they'll do extremely well. And the ones that don't get ETF listed, some of them will die. So that's going to be one of the next narratives, especially for the bigger caps. You know, people will speculate that, yeah, what's going to get listed, what's going to get approved in a big cap fund. You know, I would assume, of course, that it will be Bitcoin, then it will be Ethereum. I always said that, you know, it would flip it on its head if Bitcoin got a spot ETF before Bitcoin, like Ethereum itself got one before Bitcoin. And I said that why it was possible, because Ethereum's a company. It's the Ethereum Foundation. They're a fucking tax-paying entity. Like, they exist. Bitcoin itself, the very things that makes it its strength is also its weakness, because it doesn't have anyone fighting for it. You can't fuck with Ethereum. You know, they have very well-funded team, and they're legitimate, and they can get expensive legal teams and crap to go after the government itself. Like, they've got a lot of money, and they've got a lot of people backing them that are very wealthy. You know, the SEC and things like that. Yes, they do well, but some of these companies have enough money to fight the SEC forever. Look at XRP. You know, so that's an issue that they've run into. Some of these companies are very well funded, so they can keep the SEC in court forever. I mean, that doesn't worry to them either. They're rich, and they have everything on the line because they have to be able to sell their tokens, so they can't lose. So yeah, it's going to be a very different world for crypto. You know, these runs are going to be different. The next bubble, it's going to be massive. You know, people don't understand. People don't understand the narratives that are coming, like the different narratives. They've got the ETF, they've got the AI, they've got the big caps, which will be a big cap fund eventually. It's different. It's not the same as the last one. And the blow off where everyone goes into these shit tokens will be completely further down. It's going to be a longer drawn out bull market than people can ever expect, because ETFs are quite slow. It's a slow to launch list, yes, but it's a slow, steady influx of capital because it's listed, you know, it's online. It's just a slow build up of capital, and it's a spot build up of capital in the spot market because they have to hold the asset physically. So it's not something that they just open the door and it's just going to go to 100k, but it's going to be a slow influx of hodlers, and not just hodlers like fucking some dude from India who buys $5 worth of Matic. Hodlers who are moving, you know, 5, even 2% of the insurance funds, pension funds, fucking 401ks, superannuation funds, all of that stuff into it. It's very different. And that'll get the spread, you know, the liquidity will improve a lot. But on what? You know, you have to do the maths. You have to know someone who knows everything to have your side. And I mean, I'll be here with you guys, and I'll be here, and we'll make a lot of money next run, lads. Talk to you soon.